Alrighty, welcome to the recording, guys. We are about to kick off with the content portion of this workshop. It's the Write the Right Book workshop, and I'm going to share a screen, flip you guys around so you can see what I'm seeing, minimize that. All right. So we're here today because we want you to write the right book. We want the book to be in line with the business and the platform that you're already building or the message that you're already sharing. We want to make sure that that's the same business platform and message that you want to continue to build for the next 3 to 5 years. And we want to make sure that you are helping to change people in some way, like transform them, take them from being stuck to having clarity or encouragement, or we're going to talk about that transformation. And we want it all to fit nicely into the reader then wanting to work with you to build this business, this platform, this nonprofit, this movement, whatever it is that you're building. Okay, so we'll kind of walk through all of these steps, and then I'm going to turn off the recording, and we're going to talk as a workshop in a little circle. And then if you guys are watching the recording, if you have any follow-on questions, you can always email me, hello@paperravenbooks.com, or you can join me up on Facebook. I hang out live there. We've got a free writing group too. So there are ways to get in touch with me if you have any future questions, or message me directly, whatever. I'm happy to get on the phone and chat too. All right, so here we go. Make sure you're writing the right book. Let's talk about the point of your book. So why would someone read your book? And what transformation do you hope the reader will experience through the pages of your book? So you can almost imagine that someone's going to start with the introduction, and that you're taking them on a journey, right? Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going with you, and their perspective is changing. They're getting more information. They're being encouraged through your stories and through the wisdom, advice, lessons you're sharing with them. And when they get to the end of the book, something will be different about them. They'll have an epiphany. They'll have hope. They'll have knowledge. They'll have something new. Second, after someone reads the book, how will they want to go deeper with you? If your phone number was at the end of this book and they were able to call you as soon as they finished and say, I want to work with you, what would you want that working relationship to look like? And so there's a why statement that I really recommend that you think about. Maybe we should do that first. Let's talk about the why statement real quick. The why statement is it's an abbreviated telling of why you really want to write this book, who you are talking to, and what change you're going to implement or help them implement in their lives, and then how that's going to change your life. And so it's a 2-part why statement. The first part is about the reader, how you're going to help the reader. The second part is about how this book is going to change your life. And when you're writing this out, I really recommend that you go sort of all out with how it could change your book. And I mean, it could help you to be a public speaker. It could help you to get a TED Talk. It could help you to start a business. It could help you to become a high-level coach. It could help you to do book tours. It could help you to make enough money to live on the boat in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure. Or I guess it's maybe the Caribbean. You would probably start in the Gulf of Mexico and you just keep sailing your boat until you hit the Caribbean, because that's much prettier. But anyway, you can think about all the ways in which a successful book is going to make possible the life that you really want. Maybe you go to communities and you do workshops, live workshops with small groups, and you're changing communities. There's all sorts of ways in which your book can transform the reader who's in the book with you and make all of your dreams come true, basically, is what we're talking about. Is the goals, the visions, the possibilities that come from your book. If you can write that out into a paragraph, and I keep mine on a virtual Post-it note on my desktop, and it's just 3, 4, 5 sentences. It's just a distilling, an encapsulation of why you want to write this book. And you don't even have to know which book it is that you're going to write when you are writing this why statement. It's more why do I feel called to write? Like, what is this calling? What is this feeling in me? And put those desires in a why statement somewhere visible. Okay, so let's connect the dots between this like urge, this desire to write a book, and how it's going to sort of strategically play out with the reader and with your business. So we started talking about the transformation, but basically I like to think of it as the reader comes in at starting point A, right? They find your book. They're looking for something, right? They're at a bookstore, they're at Amazon.com, they're listening to an interview, and they hear the title of a book, and they're like, oh, that sounds like something I'd be interested in reading, because they have some sort of, they're stuck. They've lost momentum. They're not making progress in a goal. They're confused. They don't have information. They don't know how to do something. This thing that they're trying to do is super complicated, or they're discouraged, right? I will come back to the chat. Okay, just wanted to make sure we didn't have some audio problem. Okay, yes, Amy, I will come back to your question too. They're discouraged. They're like, I am lonely, afraid, feel like no one knows what I'm going through. But if they could read someone else's story that's similar to theirs, they wouldn't be discouraged anymore. So imagine, just like put yourself almost like you're in a casual conversation with a reader. You're at a coffee shop and you're like asking the reader, like, what are you feeling? What's your biggest problem in life right now? And that problem is going to be some version of stuck, confused, or discouraged. What we want to start envisioning is transformation ending point B, right? Once your reader has finished your book, assuming that your reader has been completely transformed by your stories, your wisdom, your advice, your insights, how does your reader look, feel, and act at the end of your book, right? So the goal would be that your reader has forward momentum toward their own goal, whether that goal is financial, like getting their finances in order, or weight loss, or whatever. Maybe they have clarity on a topic. They know something now that they didn't know. They know how to do something that they didn't know before. Maybe they feel encouraged and empowered. They're like, oh, I'm not the only one who went through this crazy shit. And this, the author made it through. I will too. So those are the two that's what anchors the book, is that starting stuck point and that transformation, and the chapters make that transformation possible. The chapters kind of have that arc to make the transformation possible. Here's something that I feel painful saying, but it must be said. If your book is all about you, your reader will not have a desire to continue to work with you. Here's a distinction I want to draw. There is memoir and there's nonfiction. Memoir, well, really, maybe it's most helpful to say there's fiction, there's memoir, there's nonfiction. And memoir, although it is categorized as nonfiction, really, like strategically, it sits right in the middle. It sits, I would argue, almost closer to fiction, because fiction is a story, right? You got your protagonist, crazy shit happens to your protagonist, and then your protagonist, overcomes in some way. Memoir has very similar arcs to fiction, except that they are based on true events. And even then, sometimes memoirs have those disclaimers at the beginning of the book that say that they fudged some things. But the compelling nature of a memoir is because you get attracted and attached to the protagonist, which is also the author, and the crazy shit that they go through and how they overcome, right? It's all character development. It's all plot. It's all setting. It's timing the plot so that it's a page turner, right? I mean, the value of a memoir is that you become emotionally attached to the protagonist and you want to know what happens next. Kind of the same as fiction, right? And so the way that those books are successful is that when someone gets to the end of a book, their next thought is, oh, I want to read this author's next book. Like, that's it. That is the sales pipeline. That is the funnel. It's like you start them at one book and you just keep feeding them more and more books. And your goal is to have like 20 books that all sell really well and you're making a living because you've got you don't need 20. You probably have 5, 6, or 7 books, and your reader starts with one book. And at the end of that book, essentially the transformation is, that was so fantastic. I want to read another book. I want to do it again. And so then you offer them another and another. Nonfiction, our goal is very different. Our goal is, theoretically, it would be nice to write one really solid book. And at the end of that book, the reader's question is, how can I get in touch with the author? Where's the author's website? Can I call the author and ask for help? Is there some way in which the author can help me make this transformation happen in my life? So you kind of see how those are like two different goals, right? So it's almost like the call to action at the end of these books are very different. So if the book is all about you and your story and your struggle and your triumph and how you overcame and the crazy shit you went through in life, then at the end of the book, the reader's just going to want to know, where's the next book? They're not going to want to know how to work with you. So it's fine to write memoir. Memoir is great. I love memoirs. But I just want to let you know that we are talking about something slightly different with this strategy. So imagine that your reader closes your book and wants to work more deeply with you. What could you offer to help your reader move more fully into this transformation, this new state of momentum, clarity, encouragement? And this is, seriously, dream up any and all the ways that you could work with your reader. Think about one-on-one coaching, workshops, retreats, speaking at other people's events, TED Talks, hosting your own live events, creating online courses, building a community and an online membership site. These are all ways in which you can take the exact same transformation and make it happen, help the reader implement it in real life. And so, like, you see this all the time. There's a book about how to get your finances in order, and then the author also offers financial planning services, or the book is all about how to lose weight, and then the author also has, a diet and fitness course that you can take online, or a gym that you can join, right? The book is about how to build a business, or how, let's take it less how to and more story-like, but it's more like the story of someone who was, raised from like poor socioeconomic background, didn't go to a good school, everyone teased them, thought they were dumb, and eventually they grew up and became this amazing speaker, and they wrote this book about their journey. And at the end of the book, it's like, well, that person teaches you how to speak, how to be a speaker, how to communicate this message, right? And so whether it's more how-to focused or more story focused, and we can talk about the different structures here in just a little bit, but either way, the book leads very nicely into how the author makes money behind the scenes. This is called the back end. All of these are what I would call the back end of a book, where they reach the back of the book and they're like, great, what's next? And that's where you're going to make your money, because it's not going to be on book sales. It's going to be from the back end. So this is important. The topic of your book should be the same topic of the products and services that you will offer. You kind of want to have the excitement and enthusiasm about offering these products and services for like the next 3 to 5 years, because this is a foundation builder. And then, maybe you've already, built up some sort of business platform, nonprofit. Maybe you're already, generating revenue from products and services, and the book is going to give you a nice big bump, but it's still going to take 3 to 5 years to really see the fruition, like the full potential off the back end of this book. And then that's why often you will see authors who will, like, every 3 to 5 years, they'll write another nonfiction book because they've pivoted in some way, they've added a new service, they've changed directions a little bit, or they've discovered something new and added a higher level. And so they want the book to feed into a new direction or a new level of their products and services. So this is something that we kind of touched on earlier, but the reason that you need this strategy in place to begin with is because there are technically there are 3 ways to make money, but I would say there are really only 2 ways to make money as an author. One way is the almost never happens to anyone, the outlier method, which is write one book and make a ton of money off of it. Write one book and sell hundreds of millions of copies and like retire. That happens to people like Harper Lee, you know, and not many other people. But really, the two mainstream ways to make money are, one, writing a lot of books. And so you will see that authors who are spending most of their time writing, they probably have already published 4, 5, or 6 books. And I would actually challenge you, if you are thinking of an author who you know, like you anticipate their next book. You're like, I can't wait till Malcolm Gladwell releases his next book. Malcolm Gladwell didn't really become like a household name until probably his 3rd or 4th book. And so he wasn't really like making his full ideal income until he'd already been a published author 3 or 4 times over. That's pretty typical. So you're going to start making money as an author, book 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, but hopefully you're making money by book 5. Hopefully by that point you've built up a readership who's anticipating your books and buying your backlist. The second main way, and this is what I like to focus on because there's so much you can do here, is working with the people who have read your book. And this should be exciting. Like you should feel that there's more that you want to offer to your reader. You should feel that like, okay, I could write a book on this, but there's so much more that I could write. It's like, great, write the intro version and then the rest is working with you, you know? And once your reader finishes the book, if you would love to continue the conversation and that transformation has begun, then it's like, okay, great. You are on the right track. And again, remember, this is like 3 to 5 year thing. So if you're considering 2 different books and you know that one book, you kind of want to just say your piece and be done with the book topic, it's like probably not the best investment of your time and energy and money. On the other hand, if you have a book topic and you're like, this is where I want to go for the next, foreseeable future in my business and my platform, then it's like, yes, it is worth investing the time, energy, and money because that's going to take you to the next phase. Okay. So if you want to talk to your reader and teach your reader more on this topic, I'm like, that is a really good sign that something is possible. So sum it up. You have picked the right book if you are offering a transformation to the reader and you are excited by the idea of working more deeply with the reader for further transformation. Oh, sorry. This is part of the course that I'm creating now. It is so good. I was like, I have to share this. So that is module 3, part 1. But actually, I do want to show you real quick a little. We were talking about the. So I know you're also thinking about structure. So I want to show you something from structure. We talked about memoir. Sorry, let me skip down this. You get to see the real, this is the real beta stuff. This is the course that exists in a Google Doc before it's pretty. In nonfiction writing, there are 4 main structure types. There's a chronological story, straight up memoir. And I say chronological, it might not actually, like chapter 1 might not actually be when I was born. You might sort of mix up the order of the story, but basically it's the story of someone's life. Number 2 is story with supporting topics. Number 3 is topics with supporting stories. And number 4 is straight up how-to. So as you're thinking about like, well, where's my book going to fall? More than likely it's going to fall either as a chronological story with supporting topics or topics with supporting stories. And so let me just, we already talked quite a bit about memoir and that it's good for sharing a story, but it doesn't lead a reader through transformation. It leads them to want the next book, right? So it's closer to fiction than nonfiction. A chronological story with supporting topics. This looks like you as the writer sharing your stories. Maybe even you're mostly sharing stories, but you're pausing to offer the reader lessons, wisdom, advice. So some natural pause points are like at the beginning of a chapter, you could sort of like preview, like here's the lesson or wisdom advice that I learned, and then tell the story of how you learned it, right? The hard way. Or at the end of a chapter, kind of a sum up sort of recap. It might be 1 page. It might be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages. It's, that part is flexible, but the natural pause points are at the beginning of a chapter and at the end of a chapter or in between chapters is also an option. If you want to do like a story and then like a point as its own chapter and then a story. So you're starting to see that like you can just choose how you alternate them. Or if you want to focus more on the wisdom and lessons learned, you might stick with topics and supporting stories. So you're sharing mostly lessons, wisdom, how-to advice, but you're also sharing stories. And the stories can be your own or client stories or colleagues or famous people or historic people. It doesn't matter who they are. Honestly, they could be made up. No one's going to know, right? You just put a disclaimer at the beginning of the book and it doesn't matter. But you want a story of real people so that there are people who seem real, so that there's an emotional connection for the reader. And again, you can put this a natural pause point at the beginning of a chapter or the end of a chapter or between chapters. Notice how this is different than a straight up how-to that's just topics where you're only sharing information. This is kind of like the dummy books, Facebook ads for dummies or how to rewire a car for dummies or whatever, those big yellow books. There's no story there. No one knows who the author is. No one cares who the author is. And when you read a straight up how-to book like that, you're not, like if you read Facebook ads for dummies, you're not necessarily going to be looking at the back of the book to figure out who wrote it and how to get in touch with them. It's like, well, it's a how-to book. There's a million of them. The author is almost interchangeable or negligible. Like, I got the information I wanted. I'm going to move on and find another book, So that's different than what we talked about with topics with supporting stories, because the stories make the reader feel like they have an emotional connection with you as the narrator. Okay. So as you're thinking about what is, like how to just get this information out of your head, you can start by writing out the milestones of your story and then thinking about what topics, advice, or lessons you would want to offer to the reader, and then just combining them. And maybe it's 3 stories in a topic, or maybe it's, a topic followed by a story. Like there's different ways to combine them, but ultimately you're matching 1, 2, or 3 stories with a topic, or a topic with a story, and you're just pairing them off and alternating them. And you can do all this in basically a list, like a Word document list. I would call that a rough organization, and you can use that to guide your writing process. Alrighty, so we're going to wrap up there because that's mostly about sort of like the topic, like the strategy of your topic and what the rough structure might look like, and then some ideas for getting going on how to get that structure started. So I'm going to pause the recording here, but you guys who are catching the recording, if you have any questions, email me at hello@paperravenbooks.com or catch me on Facebook, Paper Raven Books, and we can chat there. So workshop folks, let's open it up. Let me turn it off. Oh, I stopped screen share, but now I have to